Since the end of the Cold War, the United States has dramatically reduced the number of nuclear weapons it has deployed or in storage. That arsenal today is roughly 90% smaller than at the height of the nuclear arms race with the Soviet Union. America's nuclear stockpile has fallen to levels not seen since the 1960s, while China has embarked on an unprecedented nuclear buildup. The U.S. only has about 1,700 deployed nuclear warheads, and the newest is over 35 years old. In Asia, since the 1960s, the U.S. has withdrawn its nuclear weapons from Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan. If war were to break out over Taiwan, experts fear our base in Guam could be neutralized in a Chinese first strike, and the U.S. would not be able to respond in kind.
All of this requires urgent action.
Frank Gaffney, the host of Securing America, served as Assistant Secretary of Defense in the Reagan administration, when a strategy of peace through strength and a nuclear arms buildup helped defeat the Soviet Union.
All of that has essentially gone over the side. I can't tell you how frustrating it is to see that we are hoping that nobody notices that we haven't done a whole lot with our nuclear deterrent since I left the Pentagon.
China, meanwhile, has taken a different course, tripling the size of its nuclear arsenal in just 5 years. It's now the planet's fastest growing nuclear power.
I think that they are increasing the size of their nuclear arsenal because they want to use it to coerce others into standing down.
China expert Gordon Chang believes Beijing learned a lesson from the way Vladimir Putin used the threat of nuclear war to deter the West from more direct involvement in Ukraine.
The Chinese saw that this actually works. I think that they will precede any invasion of Taiwan, Japan, whatever, with threats to use their nuclear weapons to get the U.S. not to come to the aid of its friends and partners.
The U.S. military does have new nuclear weapons systems under development. But having dealt with the Soviets, Gaffney thinks China has even more nuclear weapons than the world thinks it has, some stored in its western desert.
They never bought this idea that Ronald Reagan, my old and much revered boss, famously said, which is a nuclear war can never be won and must never be fought. They believe nuclear war is something that can be used decisively.
To counter China, some defense experts believe the U.S. would need to return at least some nuclear weapons to bases in Asia. And the South Koreans in a poll have already said they would welcome that.
All right, Dale Hurd joins us now for more. Dale, what an alarming report. Let's talk about the cost. How big a buildup do we need, and can we even afford it?
A few years ago, I would have said, of course we can afford it. Now I'm looking at these federal budget numbers, and I'm not so sure. And we also have a national mood right now of America first, and I understand that. We can't continue to be the policeman of the world. But we're not talking about rebuilding a Cold War arsenal. We're talking about showing our adversaries that we still care, that we're still in the game, because a nation like China only respects strength. And then we have to decide, are we going to give Asia to China? Because there's all kinds of chatter in security circles that China intends to take Taiwan one way or another in 2 years. And are we willing to counter that threat by redeploying nuclear weapons in Asia? As we saw, the Koreans would welcome that. But I don't think at all that we have the national will to do that.
And I don't think Americans realize we are in the status we are now. Interesting timing for your report, because President Trump recently announced a plan for the Golden Dome missile defense similar to Israel's Iron Dome. What role could that play?
Well, it would certainly be effective against, let's say, a first strike against the continental United States. But I've always felt that if nuclear weapons are ever used again, it's going to be a small, low-yield battlefield tactical nuclear weapon. And in fact, this is a part of, and by the way, that would affect only, let's say, a half mile rather than wiping out a city or a state. That is a part of Russian military doctrine. It's called escalate to de-escalate. And the idea is you use one of these small nuclear weapons to get the other side to either give up or come to the negotiating table. And at one point, Russia had 10 times the number of tactical nukes that the United States has. And I've always feared that if things went really badly in Ukraine for the Russians, that Putin might use one of these. And I'm not confident that the West or the United States would know how to respond to that.
All right, Dale, thank you for reporting. We appreciate you joining us.